Well, good morning, everyone. Jeff DeVerter, Chief Technology Evangelist here at Rackspace Technology, and welcome to Cloud Talk Live. All right, folks, great show planned for you today. I want to welcome you to this Thursday episode, the pre-Friday, if you will. Guys, this is going to be great. I'm so glad you're here. You know the routine. I'd love to know who you are. I'd love to know where you are. So let's start the conversation with that. Just go ahead and introduce yourself in the comments below. Guys, great conversation coming up all about machine learning and artificial intelligence. Hey, and if you have an idea for a topic you think maybe a great guest to be on, you've got feedback for us, just send an email over to solve@rackspace.com. It's been a little quiet in the inbox. Once somebody just send me a little, hi, how you doing? That'd be awful fun. So just send a little note. Guys, hey, look, there we go. Everybody's coming in. We got Adele here from New York. We got Ashwin. Everybody, welcome to Be Like Adele, Be Like Ashwin, and introduce yourself, just like Heather. Hi, Heather from Iowa, the corn capital. And Dubai is here. We've got India also. That's fantastic. Everybody, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, if you're not already aware, I don't know how you wouldn't be, but maybe you're not aware, we've got a podcast over here, and this week's episode has Smidith Nambiar. And Smidith and I had a great conversation a few weeks back all about IoT, specifically even in a little bit in, hey, Sean's here. As it deals with mining and manufacturing. So you want to check that out. You can find the Cloud Talk podcast anywhere that podcasts are found. Look at all that list. Amazon Music, Apple, Google, Spotify. They're all there. Go check them out. Leave us a review. Say nice things. It'd be so fun. Well, folks, enough of me going on here. Hey, Singapore's here. Glad you're here. Sean Gardner saw you go by. It's not so muggy over by my house, Sean. Hey, today I have a brand new guest here for you, Ben Blanquera. Now, Ben is brand new to Rackspace. A couple, 3 weeks in, maybe 14 days. He's keeping track. He says, day 13 in, day 14 in. And he'll come up here in a second and tell us where he is. But Ben is the guest today, and I'm really excited to have him here. Ben has decades of experience in this space, and he's come to share some of that with us. So let's go ahead and bring Ben up onto the stage. Oh, we got Ben. Look at this. We've got Saudi Arabia here. We've got India here. Mexico's here. Singapore's here. Singapore's staying up late. I appreciate that. Can you believe it?
Oh, I can't believe it. It's awesome. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you all for being listening in from all over the globe. This is pretty awesome.
It is really awesome. So you know, we were getting ready before we went live, everyone, and just realizing, you know, we have this global audience, which is fun, but also it's a global production. So, you know, Ben's up in Ohio, I'm down in Texas. Well, I guess you've seen Daniel once, but Daniel's in Jersey, and it's really fun with this modern cloudy sort of thing that you can put on a video production with nobody in the same room. Really, it just surprises me that we can still pull some of this stuff off, Ben.
It's called the internet, Jeff.
I know. It's all the internet. The internet's and the cloud thing. Hey, Ben, I got a stat for you. But before we get into that stat, folks, you know that if you go over to rackspace.com/solve, that's where all of our thought leadership stuff is. And at thought leadership at Rackspace, the only thing we have to sell is, well, a whole heck of a lot of nothing. We're giving away information, and you can find it over at rackspace.com/solve. Thank you, Daniel, for putting that up. And one of the things we do over there is, and I've been teaching Ben about this. Ben, how many days in are you?
This is day 14.
Day 14. All right, 2 whole weeks. You're an old timer now.
I'm a veteran now. Just ask me.
We go out and we do research. We go out and talk to over 1,400 IT decision makers in 10 different countries, and we ask them all sorts of questions. One of the questions I asked, and Daniel, let's bring me up full screen so that we can see this, is this little doohickey right here, and that is we ask them the question: do you envision a time within the next 5 years where your organization will no longer own a data center? So we had 56% of the respondents say yes, no data center, meaning they're moving to the cloud or maybe a colo or managed hosting of some sort. And 3% already don't have a data center. And I think this is really pretty interesting stuff. The fact that so many people are not considering having a data center at all. Ben, what do you think about that?
When you think about do data centers actually add value to your company, and if you have limited funds to invest, I say you should be spending your funds on focusing on customers and people you serve and the data you have versus where you're going to put it. And I think that's in an area where you've got to choose where to invest, that's a smart decision. And by the way, guess what? Data centers are really complicated and expensive to run. So it's like the notion of you could own a power plant, but you don't.
That's right.
But
That's right. It's not the 18 and 1900s where we have to generate our own power because it's too expensive or inconsistent to get
yeah,
to your
it's a
manufacturing.
utility. It's a utility at this point.
Well, and Ben, you mentioned you brought up data. Where are you going to put your data? And there's a stat I read recently, and there's varying ones, but I think directionally accurate that 80% of the world's data, 80% of the world's data was created in the last 2 years. That's a lot of data creation, Ben. What you know, we were talking about this earlier. When we think about data, I mean, data is a driver for so much. It's the precious resource. Some people call it oil. Oil's not very exciting because you don't want oil. You want to get to a location. So I'd rather call
Mhm.
it the oxygen of a business. It is the soil. It's the thing that companies grow up out of. Ben, you're new to us here at Rackspace. In your
Yeah,
observations, how are companies dealing with this data explosion? Are they dealing
I
with it well?
well, I mean, what we're seeing with companies is they're saying in a very competitive world, I've got to have maniacal customer focus. What does that mean? Things like hyper personalization, things like great customer service. I need to figure out ways in healthcare. How do we reduce the cost of healthcare? And so there's a big driving force that says, we could figure this out, but it starts with data. The challenge for most companies is one, having a data, they're going from data literate to data fluency. When you go from data literate to data fluency, you've got to have a series of very disciplined practices that say, at the end of the day, data is a precious commodity and you've got to treat it that way. And what we're seeing is the rise of the chief data officer, a set of tool sets that allow us to curate and manage data in a much more systematic kind of way. And so what we're seeing is a tremendous explosion in the investment of how do we manage, curate, even know what we have, because that's an incredible precursor. If you want to do any AI, ML, some of these fancy things,
Which is
you
where
got to
we're
have
going. Yep.
you got to have data. And I've talked to many customers where um, the folks in front of the customer say we should do this, and everyone nods their head. And we're in vehement agreement. Yes, we should do this. But when you get down to the nuts and bolts of so how do we do predictive? Well, you got to have data sets. You got to have large enough data sets. You have some level of confidence associated with that, and you've got to have good data coming in to keep retraining your model. Those are some specifics that says a precursor associated with doing those AI ML things is fundamentally data fluency. And that is that's a pretty tough road. And most companies are organizing around that. But I think we're really relatively early in that process for most
I think we're
organizations.
extraordinarily early. I don't think, we've had data for forever because we've had applications for forever. By the way, Adele, you're cracking me up with all of the things growing up out of the data soil. That's really awesome. Um, we've had data, but it's existed as an outflow almost of our applications, and it's existed in a silo of the applications. But as we move things out into more of a cloud-based environment, even as we bring more data tooling into our own organizations, we now have the ability to get insights and connect these bits of data together in ways that we really weren't ever before. But Ben, if I were going to ask you a question, if there was one, two, or three things that a company early in this journey would need to do to make sure that their data is prepared for where we're going in the conversation, and that's machine learning and artificial intelligence. But the foundation of that is the data. So what are some things that a few folks what companies can do to start to get their data estate in order?
There's a sort of a couple of basic steps. One, there is a leadership recognition, an acknowledgement, an organization around data as an asset, and we have to manage and govern it. So the first question is, how are we going to manage and how are we going to lead the governance and management of our data? Because that then drives the people and resourcing around that. Then there's many organizations have a lot of legacy data. As
Yep.
part of that process, there is a tremendous amount of inventorying that will happen. But even before that, a key question is what kind of problems or where kind of opportunities can we start harnessing
Mm-hmm.
if we have better data, if we can make predictions, if we can use AI, because that drives what you start focusing on first. Because most organizations have so much data, to say I'm going to inventory everything in my house is daunting.
Yeah. And it's a hard way to start because it's starting with the hard work as opposed to envisioning the end of the story. In other words, especially when you're working with all of the teams that are going to have to help with this stuff, you can start with statements like, imagine if we could connect this
Yes.
dot and this dot and predict that dot. And people go, that would be pretty cool. Do you realize we have all these assets here, but we got to do a little housekeeping, got to do a little cleaning up. Wait a second, Rendier, or go to rackspace.com/jobs. You'll find all kinds of jobs with just what you're asking for at Rackspace. We'd love for you to be here. So I love your comment, Ben, because it gets us thinking about the end in mind. So let's jump to the end. So we
All
know
right.
you got to get the data estate in order. And I didn't want to jump into a conversation about machine learning and artificial intelligence and not address the proverbial data elephant in the room. And that is your data's got to be cleaned up. Ben, what are some cool ways you're seeing machine learning or AI? And by the way, they're sort of the same thing. Your data scientists hate the term AI, but what are some cool ways you're seeing it being used today?
Oh, let's start out with. I mean, my favorite is when I see things in healthcare, because when we use data to help humankind, that gets me pretty jazzed up. So let's talk about that. So there are we use AI and data for diagnostics. There's a tremendous field around looking at. Let's look at X-ray scans, radiologists to be able to detect disease states and predict, when you need to have some interventions. There are, I mean, look at a lot of you have Apple Watches. Those have, monitoring in them. And they have some sophistication that starts saying, I'm going to warn you if I see bad things happen. I'll give you an example that's
Yeah.
very simple. I ride bikes. I have a device on my bike that if it stops too quickly,
Yeah.
an emergency gets sent out to folks in my network that said, Ben just crashed.
That
Literally.
is an amazing feature.
Yeah, it's just a really interesting feature, and there's some smarts in there. And then that's not a heavy duty AI machine learning, but the notion there's data that says a sensor just noticed something and there needs to be an action that moves someplace. So there's sort of the monitoring and as well as the reaction associated with that. Let's talk about doctors' notes, right?
Yeah.
We have this huge body of knowledge around doctors puts notes in things. That is unstructured data.
Yep.
And there's a lot of insight in that data. And what we're seeing is the use of NLP, natural language processing, to mine that data for where might be some consistencies into, or how do we solve, a certain disease state? Are there certain patterns that if you give this medicine with this intervention, people get better?
Right.
Or they get worse? And how do we do that across enough people so we can start detecting some real patterns for some real predictions? Those are a couple of really interesting sort of applications: visual, natural language processing, and then just smarts associated with events that from healthcare monitoring.
Totally. I think those are great examples. Adele's cracking me up. She said you crashed into the data cloud. But when you mentioned natural language processing, it reminded me of a company called Babbly. Now, I know Babbly because we do some work for them, but that's not the point. The
Okay.
point is they're super smart in and around natural language processing. It's a team of folks that came out of the Alexa group over at Amazon. And what they
Mm-hmm.
realized when working with some pediatricians is that the noises that babies make from 0 to 2 years old before they start really speaking are
Mm-hmm.
the same all around the world, and they change and develop at the same rate. And so they created
Wow.
an app for the phone, and it was an app that you could just hold up to your baby, let it listen to all the little babbles, hence the name Babbly, that the child makes, and will tell you where they fall on the developmental scale. Are they ahead? Are they right on target? Are they a little
Oh my
behind?
God.
It would
That's
record those sounds as well. Obviously, some PII involved in that, and because the child rare, if there's an issue and you go to the doctor, kids tend to not perform when they need to, so they've got all of these sounds recorded as well. And I think one of the things that really amazed me the most, or I hadn't really considered, is the fact that all kids all around the world, regardless of language, make the exact same sounds at the exact same times in the developmental scale.
But you wouldn't know that unless you had enough data to be able to make that conclusion.
That is so true.
And, that's right. You've got to have enough place that you can see the patterns and do that. Yeah, I've got a CEO of a company that what they do is for mental health.
Yeah.
They record. They can when mental health therapists are talking to folks, they can see warning signs of suicide.
Really?
In conversation. And this came out of someone having that in their family, saying, we got to figure out how to make that happen. How do we understand the warning signs? And so just from the tone and tenor of voice.
Isn't that interesting? And it's I think where machine learning, and I really do prefer the phrase machine learning, because it's where you take and develop a pattern and then point that pattern at a mountain of data to look at things that humans just can't see, the infinitesimally small connection points or consistencies, like you mentioned, in tone of voice. One of those other areas that I think it's used a lot in, and I see it used a lot in, although it's suffering right now, and that would be supply chain. Understanding the intricacies from production all the way to consumption and all points in between.
Yeah, just pure modeling. I mean, there's the big notion in machine learning is, what's your model, and what are your inputs and outputs, and how do you model the behavior of a system, and that's fascinating. And so, but because guess what, all our computers log everything. Yeah. We now have data on every transaction, every click stroke. And so it creates the opportunity for that data to be put into models that allow you to figure out your supply chain. What, if you do this, this will happen. You're going to predict shortage here because downstream we've got a raw material that is low on inventory. Supply chain is a massive opportunity.
Well, and we're talking about babies just a minute ago. I mean, I was just listening to the news articles on the shortage of baby formula in the world right now. Did you know we only are at 40% of capacity of what's actually needed? Because in the US, there's primarily one facility that makes it. And that one facility had some production issues and was shut down by the government. And now there's shortages throughout the whole US of baby formula. Now, they would have been able to forecast that if all of this had been, built out as a digital twin and figured out, the whole process. Yeah. But now we just find ourselves in a point of shortage of formula.
Yeah. Can I point out, Jeff, one of the things that a lot of companies start out with machine learning is really customer service.
That's right.
I love healthcare, but for a lot of enterprises, it's customer service. How do I improve the customer experience? There's sort of the notion of, how do I tee up? We all have Netflix. It tells us others like you like this.
Yep.
We like that, right? But there is some prediction that helps anticipate what I might need. In call centers, the notion when you call that someone knows what your problem might be and can tee up questions or answers quickly.
Right. And that's where we cross that divide between machine learning, how do I see the pattern, and artificial intelligence, how do I make a prediction based on that? It's because you, Jeff, have watched a bunch of stupid comedies before, you will like these new stupid comedies that are now coming out.
Absolutely. We are creatures of habits.
Yeah, we are.
I
love a good rut.
I love them. Yeah.
Okay. Well, all of that. So we're getting our data estates together. We're figuring out, we've got some great use cases now for machine learning and artificial intelligence. Ben, let's pull out the crystal ball for a second. We just have a couple of minutes left with you. Okay. What are some of the things you think we can look forward to in the coming years?
Let's see. I think we're going to have a whole ecosystem around mobility. As our devices that move us around connect to each other. We're going to see smart cities where there's less congestion in the world, where you're going to be able to go in and out and move easily. Yeah. And we're going to be able to move ourselves much better. In healthcare, I think we're going to continue to see amazing breakthroughs in the detection and early intervention that gets people better very, very quickly. I think we're going to see a revolution in manufacturing. As we look at connected IoT devices in the manufacturing world, we're going to see a lot more stable operations. We're going to see a lot more better utilization, and hence the reduction of our carbon sort of footprint in the world, because our manufacturing operations are smoother and easier. I think in the customer world, we're going to raise the next generation of people just to be able to read our minds. That's what's going to happen, because we're going to get so used to folks being able to predict, or like, how did they know that? And then you start saying, well, I kind of expect that they know that.
Based on previous patterns, we predicted this bit about the future. Hey, there's a couple of folks. Adele's asking, somebody else asked, Raphael asked, if you want to learn more about having conversations like this with rackers like this any day, every day, we'll just go over to rackspace.jobs. And that's where you'll find all of that information. So Daniel's got that up on the screen. By the way, this is Daniel's last thing to do before he goes to Jamaica, the big lucky guy. All right, Ben, amazing stuff. We could have this conversation, I think, for about 3 hours, which means you obviously going to have to come back and we'll go a little deeper into it. Maybe we'll bring a data scientist along just for some fun to take us into some more practical examples.
I would love, let's do that.
All right. Hey, you guys
I'll bring them on. I'll bring some friends on.
There you go. You guys interested in that conversation? Let us know in the comments. But Ben, thank you so much for being here. This is really great. I'm so glad you were able to take the time to be on the program this morning.
Jeff, thank you for having me, and thank you all for listening.
All right, everyone, let's progress on with our morning. And let me find where my controls went. What a great conversation. The world of AI and ML is really pretty scary in some cases and pretty exciting in others. Guys, if you, again, want to find out any of this information that we have, whether it's past versions of these programs, whether it's the podcast or that research we talked about, which actually releases into the public next week, we're giving you previews. Just head over to rackspace.com/solve, or of course you can go register for, sign up for the podcast, which Cloud Talk, which you can find anywhere that podcasts are found. All right. With that, we move away from our cloud discussion. We move into This Week in Cloud. So let's go ahead and do that and bring all the buttons up. Okay. Oh, cool. This first one, check this out. So there's been some research done on the size of the clouds, and this may not surprise you, but it's an article out of TechCrunch. Written by Ron Miller. And Amazon is still the king of the clouds from a size perspective. But you know what? Microsoft is getting closer. Take a look at this graph, would you, for just 1 second. Where's that right button to push? There we are. Should be up there. Yeah, there it is. And in fact, I think I can do that and let you see it all. Woo-hoo! All right. So this shows the growth of the clouds year on year, quarter on quarter. And you can see that Microsoft chunk is getting bigger and bigger. So in the current quarter, measuring from Q1 of this year, 33% still going to Amazon, but 22% for Microsoft, growing quickly. So that's something to pay attention to. And of course, Google, you're seeing their piece of the pie expanding as well. Folks, there isn't just one cloud king. We know this now. And they're all growing at amazing paces. And they all do have some very, some specialties, I'll call it. But, we're about to get into, in a second, updates from the clouds, and that'll just reinforce the fact that there is some amazing things happening in the cloud. Greg, thanks for your comment. And yes, I think we absolutely should have an AI conversation that deals with cybersecurity. There's some really, really cool stuff happening right there. I almost gave some stuff away, but I won't because it's really cool. All right, let's move on. Hey, there is an article over at Fast Company, and Fast Company says how digital transformation is reshaping businesses. Now, what I like about this article and would love for maybe you guys to go check out, Daniel's going to drop links to both of these articles in the chat. But what they do, and I love learning from the mistakes that people have had in the past. And inside of here, they have the 4 ways that people fail or don't get the value they should have out of digital transformation. And the first is not having a clear goal. Let's make this big on the screen. Not having a clear goal as to what they want out of that digital transformation. Transformation for transformation's sake. Not so great. The second is not understanding the data that's available to you. In fact, if inside of this, what you realize is that This is where I got that quote on the amount of data in the world that was created in the past 2 years. By the way, it was 90% of all data in the world was created in the last 2 years. If you don't harness and make that available to you, well, you're just not doing yourselves any favors. All right. Let's move on. Oh, Raphael, so true, Raphael. Guys, read what Raphael's writing. He's a smart dude. Um, Okay, so the third reason is not building the organizational capacity to gather the insights. Guys, it's not just about the tech. In fact, it's never really ever about the tech. It's about bringing your people along for the ride. And number 3 and number 4 are actually very similar. So first of all, number 3, you're not using the human potential that you have in your organization to help gather the right insights with the right tooling. And the last reason is not getting buy-in, because a lot of this transformation requires change, requires modifications to people's behavior. And that is sometimes the hardest thing to do. All right. So that is what's new in the cloud. You guys can go find all of those articles. Daniel's going to post them in the chat. I don't know if they're there yet. Nope, I don't see them. And but you'll be able to go check those articles out, which is cool. All right, so moving on, let's see what's new from the cloud providers this week, and it starts with our friends over at AWS. And from them, it's about AWS announces support for Android, iOS, and macOS games with the AWS Game Kit. Guys, I just wanted to put this article up, or this update up, because I wanted to say AWS Game Kit for the Unreal Engine, which is just fantastic. And you start bringing together cloud capability with the graphics capability of Unreal Engine. Folks, only good things can come from that. If you're not in game development, maybe you should be. Maybe I should be. From Azure, general availability, Arc-enabled servers support private endpoints. Fantastic. Now we're extending these environments out into not just other areas inside of Azure, but to private endpoints. The edge is a real thing, folks, and it was a buzzword. In fact, we wrote an article a couple of years ago on all the buzzwords that were going on that didn't really have a lot of value. Edge was one of them. I got to take that off the list. The edge is a real thing. Talk to anybody in manufacturing. It's what's enabling their transformation. Now over at Google Cloud, Cloud Router now supports MD5 authentication for the BGP, or Border Gate Protocol sessions. This feature is available in preview. So go check that out over at GCP, just making their cloud environment even more secure in the networking space. Isn't that right, Raphael? Talking about the millions of network engineers and network endpoints. That's right. Folks, if you want to keep up with any of the things we're doing over here at the Solve program, it's as easy as going to rackspace.com/solve, and you'll be able to find it there. And that takes us to the last bit of info for the day. There have been several questions about how do I come over and hang out with you cool kids over at Rackspace. Well, I've got a job of the day for you. And one of the areas I've been learning a lot about lately, especially because they're one of our sponsors, is the area of software observability. Now, that takes us to the job of the day, and that is I need a manager of software observability here at Rackspace. We work with some amazing companies like App Dynamics, proud sponsor of this program, and I'm not too shy about that. But we need somebody to run this as the product manager for all things observability. So if you're interested in that job, here's a little bit about what it means to do. You will find Daniel is posting a link to this exact job in our job board. So if you want to go check it out and maybe even apply, you can do it right from there. So we're looking for somebody, a product manager, to own and rapidly evolve our services and product portfolio for observability and testing solutions in line with the overall direction and strategy of our organization. So go check that out. Software observability. If you want to check out any of the jobs, go to rackspace.jobs, and there are hundreds of them. We're hiring like mad. Again, I will pimp out the Cloud Talk podcast. I'd love for you to go check that out, everyone, and subscribe to it. Say nice things in the comments, maybe a 5-star review. You can ask. I can ask. Why not? Well, I already mentioned App Dynamics, but I'm going to mention them again. The king of software observability, App Dynamics. Just go to appdynamics.com to learn more. Request a demo. I think they've even got offerings where they'll get a first application running up for you for free, maybe. I might be speaking out of turn, but they will certainly help make it happen. Guys, it manages. If you're in the cloud, if your apps are out in the cloud that you've developed or even that you're operating, software observability can put hooks all the way from the end user all the way back to the backend databases and all points in between. Manage and monitor everything. This isn't monitoring, folks. This is true observability. Go check them out. Well, everybody, it's been a great week. I will tell you, I am on the road come the beginning part of next week. So I'll be up in New York City. Anybody up there and want to get a coffee, let me know. And we've got some customer meetings up there to attend. So we will not have a meeting, one of these on Tuesday, but I will be back on Thursday. And I can't wait to get to spend some time with you then. So mark your calendars for next Thursday, and we'll get to talk to you then. Folks, for Rackspace and our Solve program, my name is Jeff DeVerter. I'm the Chief Technology Evangelist here at Rackspace. And wow, what a great day it's been today. Have an amazing day.